If you're an Android user and you're looking for the perfect way to listen to your NoVampire podcasts, check out the Podcast Republic app on the Google Play Store. There are thousands of good reviews touting all of the special features. I like how you favorite your shows so they show up when new episodes have been uploaded. Check out the Podcast Republic app on the Google Play Store.
It's Count Podula.
Welcome to Die.
Count Chocula, Count Podula, Count Dracula.
Well, I am one of those three, so obviously this is going to be a little skewed in my references, but I think you kill Dracula, you bone Chocula, and you marry Podula.
See, I want to marry Count Chocula because I want Count Chocula always.
Well, it'd be weird if you picked you wanted to marry the one that was me for like a whole number of reasons. Yeah. So I don't know about the kayfabe implications. Welcome to Dissecting the 80s. I am Trip Lano, one half of the Mega Podcasting Powers, and with me, as always, is my tag team partner, a man who knows that if you get turned into a vampire, it shouldn't be that easy to get turned back out of being a vampire. The Macho Man Drew.
Andrew Lano. Lots of low stakes here. Lots of low stakes.
Yeah, I had seen this movie years ago, which now seems like a miracle because it is astoundingly difficult. Like, you cannot legally rent, stream, or purchase this movie.
That always seems crazy to me. Like, at least make it available to rent on, like, Amazon or something. That can't cost anything.
I'm in total agreement. It's crazy that you can't get it. I tried to solve this mystery, by the way. Like, I went digging into, like, who owns this movie. It was a De Laurentiis production, which means, you know, our old pal Dino is involved, but I went digging around beyond that. But there's so many movies that they made that are just wide. Like, they made Bill and Ted. Like, it's widely available. So I don't know if it's some bizarre situation where this particular movie ended up being. I'm surprised
old Dino isn't like, hey, for every, you know, purchase of a season of Giada's Home Cooking, you get one of my shitty movies. You have to take one of my shitty movies too.
Well, I'm pretty sure Dino is long dead.
How was he, like, old when he was making these?
He died 10 years ago, and he was born in 1919. So yes, to both questions. He died at 91, 10 years ago.
Good for him.
Yeah, but it's crazy that this movie is so impossible to have. Like, the Blu-ray's out of print. It costs like nearly $100. The VHS tapes of this go for $50. Like, I mean, I'm sure you can buy them cheaper than that. But the point is, this is a pretty good movie by an absolute powerhouse director who has won an Academy Award.
She's like
the only
a major
woman
director.
Yeah, the only woman to ever win an Academy Award for directing, and it's like this movie just might as well not exist. Bill Paxton's in it. It's like real people are in this movie, and it's just impossible to find. But anyway, we watched Near Dark, the 1987 vampire cult classic. So you know what that means.
We gotta go back. We're gonna go dissect the 80s. It's your kind of an allegory for addiction. Something's got to be about your kind of an allegory for addiction.
When the mega powers explode.
It's time. Right. Do not make any sudden moves.
Get away from him! Dad, where the hell is the corkscrew?
Wolfman's got narc!
Rest in peace.
So I didn't intend to make this the cult classic vampire month, but it did sort of accidentally happen that way.
I think this feels more culty than Creep Show. No, Creep Night. Fright Night.
Fright Night. You're confusing Night of the Creeps, which is an absolute stay tuned. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like both of these movies could be a late night double feature at a nerdy theater. I could absolutely
totally
see that being like a 10 and a 12
or a drive-in.
or a 12 and a 2-er. Yeah, this could be a great drive-in double feature. Although, again, it's probably impossible given how hard it is to track down this movie. I think they're both sort of... This movie is not fun, but it is really, really cool and has that element of sort of essential weirdness that makes things culty.
It is pretty cool. And yeah, I can see that. But I think my problem is that it's not very interesting. Like, there's so much potential there, and there's so many interesting things, and this movie just chooses to do nothing with it.
Do you think it's because so much of the stuff in this movie has been taken and put into other things that it sort of dulls it? Is it one of those, you go rewatch the originator of something, not saying this movie is necessarily the originator of any of the things in it, but I think it does do those things that feel like tropes in an interesting way, and then you watch it and you're like, oh, this is that trope. And at the time, I don't know that it was, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it hadn't become a trope yet. Maybe. That's entirely possible. But I think for me, it was that it felt very, very middling, very low stakes. Hang on, I wrote it down. It's very weird, middle of the road mishmash of a movie, is what I said. Because it has a few cool ideas, but I don't think they're executed as well as they could be, and sometimes you kind of get left with this muddy mess of like, oh, these characters are in love, or these characters, like, I wanted to learn more about this vampire clan that we hang out with, and like why they're all why do they stay together? Like what is stopping one of them from being like, fuck off, I'm leaving, and just like going to do their own thing in like Washington or Maine or something.
Yeah, I do think there is a more interesting version of this movie that's like maybe 10% different than what is in the movie. But what I like about this movie is, one, it's a first film, and I think there's something really cool about watching first films from a director who has yet to come into their own.
Well, especially something so different than what they her oeuvre kind of became.
So I agree with you in principle, but I will make this one point that I think is interesting to me, at least. It's that Kathryn Bigelow, the director of this movie, I'm not sure we had said her name yet, which is travesty, yes. But she, I feel, directs movies that you would think of as being guy movies. And I don't say that derogatorily, but they have this sort of like testosterone-y energy of their
Zero Dark 30,
this inherent,
Hurt Locker.
But yeah, there's like this inherent male like testosterone-y energy out of them.
Can I get a large pizza with testosterone? Extra cheese, light sauce.
Lots of testosterone. But I think it's really interesting. Like, she makes movies that should have this energy of being deeply sort of masculine and masculine in the like very traditional way of like muscles and punches and whatnot. But she tells those stories.
She did end up married to noted tyrant and monster James Cameron, who has himself created several of those movies you're describing.
Yes. And so the thing that I think is interesting is this movie has this sort of soft caramel center in the middle of its hard candy shell, as does Point Break. And I confess, I have not seen everything that she's ever done. I've never seen The Hurt Locker or Zero Dark 30.
Those movies are just, I know they're not made for me. Like, I know that they're not my jam, so I haven't bothered.
I agree with you, but watching this made me wonder if I was incorrectly writing those movies off because of what I thought they were. Because I do think, at least using this movie and Point Break as examples, she does a really interesting sort of character-driven movie wrapped inside a really intense energy of masculinity and maleness in the narrative. Like, the narrative is about this mostly male vampire clan, and they're sort of who has the bigger balls energy, which is also sort of the Point Break thing of like, Swayze's gang of dudes is all like surfer dudes, so they're a little chilled out, but they're still this sort of like intense masculine energy. And she's telling this sort of soft story inside that, which is the relationship between Keanu and Swayze, which is such a bummer that movie is from 1991 because it is such an 80s like energy and everything about it. It would be such a fun movie to do a podcast on. But anyway, I was just thinking about that she has this sort of, and that's not to say that like it's because she's a woman or anything like that, but it's interesting to me that she is able to tell this sort of more interesting character-driven story inside a shell of like the movie that you think this is and the movie that it actually is are somewhat different. And I wonder if that's part of the reason it seems not fully together for you.
That's entirely possible. I'm sure she wanted to be wanted to tell more, but if it's not written, there's only so much she can do.
Right. And I do the other thing about this movie that I really love is there's just like 5 or 6 scenes or shots that I just want to sit and look at. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Just like I'll just live here for a little while, and I'm happy to do that.
I don't want to spoil anything yet. I mean, whatever. But I think I will say the praise I can give the movie is that I think the bar scene could be its own short film.
Oh, for sure. And I think that's probably what this movie gets sold on. Like, I have no knowledge of this.
I have seen that scene, but as soon as they came into the bar, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I've seen the climax with Bill Paxton on the bar kicking glasses. And I don't know. I think it's in a Cracked video or...
It could definitely be that. The other thing I would think would be a potential answer would be one of those Bravo countdowns of the scariest movie moments and whatnot.
Maybe.
Or one of the addendums.
Yeah.
It's entirely possible. I did forget while I was talking about Kathryn Bigelow, the other movie of hers that I've seen is Blue Steel, which is very underseen, but I think you would really enjoy. It's Jamie Lee Curtis as a police officer, and she's being stalked by who's the male lead? Ron Silver, who you definitely would recognize as sort of a character guy, and may know beyond that, but I'm not going to dig into this, guys. And Clancy Brown is also in that. But I saw Blue Steel when I was on vacation in Texas, and although that movie is not set in Texas, watching this movie, it was like this weird confluence of all my personal Kathryn Bigelow touches where it's like, oh, this reminded me of being on vacation in Texas, and I watched the Blue Steel and all that stuff because this movie is so explicitly Texas. But anyway, let's get into Near Dark a little bit and just start rolling through the plot. We can come back to the other things. I do think Blue Steel aligns with my thought of, even though it's a woman as the cop in the center of it, that it could easily be a very masculine story, but instead it's this sort of like character thing. And I think that's an interesting way to tell these kinds of stories that I would like to explore more. So maybe I will pick up The Hurt Locker at some point. It's like, boy, do I not want to watch a movie about military bomb diffusers.
That like you could, if you're playing like Family Feud style, name the top 5 movies. Name the top 5 movie subjects Andrew wouldn't want to watch. Put them on the board. Like that's probably 2 or 3.
Right. Anyway, if you're listening and you think my theory holds water for those, feel free to tweet at Dissect the 80s so I can learn that I'm correct or incorrect without having to watch the movie. Yeah. But we start with a good old boy in his pickup truck. Did you recognize this actor?
No.
It's Nathan... Oh, man, what's the last name of the brothers from Heroes? Remember one was Milo Ventimiglia? Yeah. This is Nathan Petrelli. Caleb.
Wait, the mayor?
Yes.
Because there was the one... Milo
Ventimiglia was the younger brother.
And then there was the mayor, right?
Yeah. I don't know if he was a mayor, but he was a politician for sure.
Okay.
Yes. That's this Caleb gentleman.
Oh.
He's been in many other things as well.
He is.
But he's
very okay in this.
Adrian Pazdar, I'm going to guess is the pronunciation. He doesn't bring enough to the table here, but I think was cast because he was good looking.
I don't think May brings a whole lot to the table either.
Agreed. It sucks. Those two, it's like every time we get away from the vampire clan, I'm like, hey,
like, can we go back?
Can we go see what 150-year-old Lance Henriksen and the man in a child's body are doing right now? Because much rather be hanging out there.
Yeah, come on. I feel like that happens often in the movies we watch, where it's like you got the most white bread mayonnaise wet sandwich to be your romantic lead, and then surround them with like great chips and cookies, and you're like, yeah, yes. I have to choke down this wet sandwich to get to the good stuff, but like,
yeah, I need to take in protein to keep me going for the rest of this meeting, but boy howdy do I not want to eat. It's like the equivalent of eat your vegetables so you could have ice cream.
Yes.
But yeah, also I will say in defense of Mr. Bazdar here, he is a ham sandwich in this movie, but he is not a wet ham sandwich. He is exceedingly better than whatever that guy was from Xanadu.
I think his sandwich has been in the bag a little too long, and there's a little bit of condensation in the bag.
You know what it was? The mom packed the cooler thing in there,
it was on
and the sandwich was touching. So it's like, it's so cold, it feels wet, even if it's not like wet.
Did I ever tell you? So this is weirdly unrelated.
It's not related to the sandwich pack?
No, it's related to the sandwich packing, not related to the movie. My boyfriend once, I got home from work and he was like, oh, I don't know what you were on when you were putting the groceries away, but you put the Cheetos in the freezer, so I took those out. And I was like, no, those were there on purpose. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, so growing up, I had freezer packs on my lunch, and so the Cheetos I ate were always like very cold.
Very cold Cheetos,
and like,
yes.
That's how my brain wants to eat crunchy Cheetos, like not puffs, like the squigglies. So I will buy them and put them in the freezer. That's how I eat my Cheetos still. And if anyone at home is a Cheeto person, try it out. It's pretty fun.
We're gonna go next time we do a live show. Someone is gonna bring you a very cold bag of Cheetos,
and I will be grateful.
Anyway, this gentleman is driving to meet up with his boys, and we're having a little powwow.
He's very much
drinking beers outside.
Wait, hang on. You've never seen Tu Wong Fu, have you?
I haven't seen it, but I'm aware of it.
There's a character in that movie that John Leguizamo's character tries to hook up with, and he and that character are very similar.
Oh, okay.
Sort of, because he gets gross in like the next 7 minutes. He gets real gross, and I don't like him anymore.
Yeah. The turning off the truck business.
Yeah. Although we'll get into it.
So they see this lovely lady with an ice cream cone, and as someone who's seen this before, I'm like, wait, I'm pretty sure this girl is a vampire, but she's got an ice cream cone. But if you notice, she just like almost licks it several times.
Well, if you notice her first line of dialogue, he goes, "Can I have a bite?" And she goes, "Bite?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm dying for some ice cream." And she goes, "Dying?" And I was like, gee, I wonder if she's a vampire.
It's not subtle.
No, also, I thought she would be more glamorous. This is, I guess...
Yeah.
So I guess with vampires, you either get glampire or, like, dirty alley street rat. Like, there's not a lot of in between.
Right. There's not, like a
dusty,
guy in a
dirty,
flannel shirt.
Like,
yes.
Gross. Or, like, hi, I wake up with eyeliner on.
So that makes me want to see the like suburban dad in New Balances and a flannel shirt doing yard
Our
work.
dad at a theme park.
Yeah.
White ankle socks, chunky white sneaker,
and just like also drinks blood.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got like a fanny pack.
He's got his sunglasses on the little chain, the little like neoprene stretchy thing to hold them around his neck.
Yeah. Exactly.
Honey, where did you pack the O positive? I don't see it in the cooler.
I see AB negative and I see B negative, but I don't see O.
This is what happens when we rush. We don't wake up early enough to get out of the house on time. You forget the O negative.
So they go and have this like very weird date that
what time
I guess
is it supposed to be?
Lots of questions.
I think they meet at midnight.
My read of it was already late by the time this guy showed up in this truck. Like maybe he did a lot of bull whatevering or horse whatevering that day. and gets to see his buddies, meets this gal like shortly before last call.
Okay. So like it's 1. It's late.
I get the impression that this is the type of town where the hangout after 10 p.m. is the convenience store that offers the soft serve and also 6-packs. Yeah, the Circle K, the whatever, Jerry's grocer.
What is the line from Bill and Ted about the Circle K?
Strange things afoot at the Strange things afoot.
Strange things afoot at the Circle K.
So they go for a cruise and they're like, "Oh, listen to the night and what it says." And I'm going like,
I wrote, God, young single men would be such easy vampire prey. Because she literally is like, stop.
For a woman, yes.
She's like, stop the car. And he's like, okay. And stops in the middle of the road. And she's like, I want to show you something. Get out of the car. And I was like, wow, straight dude. He just gets out of the car and she's like, she basically says, listen to the music of the night. What beautiful music they make.
The strange music. Okay, but I will say, you saying this is like a straight people thing, every time I bring these things up, you're like, nah, I wouldn't worry about them. It's fine. So let's not act like this is a straight versus gay thing. If a handsome enough vampire had you in this exact situation and asked you to stop the car, you would probably do it.
Okay. There's a difference between straight culture and gay culture, and the gay culture, we would be leaving in the pickup truck on the assumption that we're about to go fuck. Like, it wouldn't be...
So how does that make you any less of an easy mark for the vampire? You're like, oh, straight man, like, you also would be dead.
No, it's different.
It's different because you think that there would be sex involved and instead you get bitten by a vampire.
No, it's different because you would have an idea from the jump.
About the vampire? You wouldn't. Wait, what? How is that the answer?
No.
I think you are dodging this like a politician now.
I'm not. I think gay culture and straight culture are different.
I just don't understand how you also don't end up bitten by the vampire.
If I'm in the car and the guy says that, I'm like, oh, I'm going to die. Like, my brain is like, yeah. Like, if I'm driving him home, I'm not like, yeah, let's get out of the car and fuck on the side of the road. I'm like, yeah, you get out. I'll be right there. And then I peel out.
Okay. I don't think that he thinks they're going to have sex right here either.
I 100% think he does.
No, I think he thinks they're going to do some like maybe light to medium petting on the hood or tailgate of this truck.
Or in the truck bed.
Anyway, he's like, so they do listen to the music of night, and then
the children of the night. What beautiful music they make.
Music they make, yeah. And so he's like, oh, I'm going to take you to see my special friend. He doesn't twang like that, but that's how I'm going to play him. And they go, and she... Yeah, I was surprised they don't have him twanging all over this movie, honestly. It's surprising that...
Probably like, hey, he sounds like he just got off the set of Footloose. Can we dial it back a bit?
Well, it's the dad doesn't do it, the little girl sister doesn't do it, and he doesn't do it, which is why, like, none of the extras in this movie have a twang, and this movie is definitely set in Texas, so I'm just surprised that not everyone... like, under a normal director's hand, everyone in this movie would sound like Foghorn fucking like
Well, I don't think everyone needs to, but the main guy and his family should. They're cattle ranchers in Texas.
I did just watch From Dusk Till Dawn, which is also a vampire movie set in Texas. And nobody twangs. I guess that's also set in Mexico. But in the Texas parts, nobody's twanging in that either. So maybe Texas is just not as twangy as we in the Northeast think.
Maybe.
Anyway, the horse doesn't like May. She spooks the hell out of it. Yeah, exactly. Although I think this is how horses would react to me as well.
No, but I think it's a classic vampire thing.
Oh, it is a classic vampire thing for sure. And then he lassos her.
Literally lassos her. And I was like, ugh.
There's two things in succession here that are the epitome of it works if the other person is into it or you're a rapist. Yes. And there is like you cannot know how they are going to react before you do it. So it's like, I am either about to commit assault or this person is into it. And it's like, when I'm faced with a decision like that, I just don't do it. But in a movie, in the movies, especially in the 80s, everyone just does the thing, and more often than not, the ladies are into it. I wonder if that leads to why we have such a problem in our general culture. Maybe.
Possibly. Yeah, because he's like, oh, I want to show you how I lasso the horse. And I was like, I don't think you lasso horses. I think you ride.
Typically, no.
You ride a horse while you lasso things.
Sure. If you have like a new horse, back in at least in Red Dead Redemption, there was a mechanic wherein a horse was like new, and you had to lasso it and then like train it. So it was like the horse was wild, and you had to sort of domesticate it, so to speak.
Our knowledge of ranching comes from Red Dead Redemption, and our knowledge of weaponry and nuclear stuff comes from Fallout.
I would add Back to the Future 3 for horsemanship
very good point.
as well. Anyway, they kiss, and then she says, "Okay, you got to take me home." So they're in the truck, and this is the time he does this. Yeah. It's like just beginning to dawn, and that's like exactly like you said. It's like, wait, how long have they been hanging out? Is it like 6 hours that we saw? Like, there was no indication that this was anything less than the linear time we were taking on the screen. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have a montage.
We don't see a clock when they meet, and then a clock when they're at the cattle ranch. Like, I'm confused.
Right. So he stops the car and takes the keys out and is like, "I'll tell your dad that the truck broke down. Kiss me and I'll take you home." And she freaks out, understandably, because she's a vampire and is about to turn into fire.
Yeah. Although, wait, did you actually watch Dr. Sleep yet?
Not yet.
Okay. There's a character in Dr. Sleep who uses their shine, or I guess, their shine for good, for quote unquote good. Like, she finds predator men and then like shines them or whatever and like takes their shit. And I was like, oh, at first I was like, oh, that's what she's gonna do to him. He's like clearly a rapist or like a Grossman. And so she's using her powers. She's like, oh, I found you, Grossman, let me rip your throat out. Because I feel like if I was a vampire, that's what I would do.
This is where your 2020 is showing, because in 1987 he is neither of the things that you described.
Yeah, it's gross.
I don't disagree with you. Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I would use my vampire powers for.
So they kiss a little, she bites him on the neck, and then she starts running.
It's okay. So this movie also could have taken 5 minutes to demonstrate their vampire rules, because there's a lot of rules about like how you become a vampire, what are their powers, what are their limitations, what are their weaknesses, and the movie is just kind of like, figure it out. Because I don't disagree. In most vampire lore, being bitten by a vampire doesn't turn you. You're bit by a vampire, and then they usually what I remember is they feed from you, and then you feed from them, and then you become a vampire.
Yes.
Or something to that effect.
It's usually that sequence, yes.
Or like they drain you completely and then give you their blood or whatever. But in this, it's kind of like a zombie situation. One bite.
Or a werewolf.
Or a werewolf. Yeah.
So I do like, this is one of those scenes I was talking about in the long intro to this, where so she's running and he's now running across the fields toward his family home, and he's like starting to smoke. But it's such a beautiful shot of him running, sort of silhouetted against the rising sun. Well, he's running.
I will say, whoever the location scout is did a great job too, because the landscape and the rural look of everything is very nice.
Yeah. And I'm imagining that he probably had like Ziploc bags full of dry ice all over his costume, which is probably unpleasant.
Or they just stuck smoke bombs in his jacket.
Yeah, that would make more sense.
So he's running home, and it's a real Finding Nemo moment. Like, he's running home, his father and sister are doing something to an animal, and then
they're doing some sort of veterinary procedure. Oh. The way you described it seems like they were skinning it or some such.
So, well, I think they were doing a transfusion. They don't tell you that, and then an hour later, they're going to tell you they're going to say, "Oh, Dad, have you ever done a transfusion on a human?" I didn't know he did a transfusion on anything.
Yeah, I did get veterinarian out of this guy, or at least educated farmer. Rancher.
So this Winnebago comes rocketing through the plains and just scoops him up in front of his dad and his sister, like Nemo.
Yeah, I had forgotten the plot, and I was like, "Oh man, this guy's gonna turn into dust in front of his family. That's awful."
See, that would have been a great. The other two options we gave, where she kills him because he's skeevy, and he bursts into flames in front of his family, I think are more interesting.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't think this is a great movie, but I think I like a lot about it. He gets snatched by Bill Paxton, who yanks him into the van, and I like the Vampire Clan, but Bill Paxton in this movie rules. Like, his clothes are amazing.
I would want to play in this if I were one of the vampires.
Yeah, his vibe rules. He's absolutely an unhinged lunatic, which makes sense for a vampire. Everything about him is amazing. And I do agree with you. This would be a perfect time to be like, okay, you're a vampire now. Here are some basic rules. Because she even says, like, I'm going to teach him how to hunt and do things. Like, it'd be very easy for her to be like, okay, obviously no more sunlight. You know that one, but here's some other ones you might not know.
Mm-hmm. The silver's bullshit, you know. You can eat all the garlic you want, kid.
Yeah, exactly. The whole this movie doesn't do that you have to invite them in thing. So he could very easily be like, you could just go wherever you want. And this movie also doesn't seem to have the glamour thing, which would be another thing to talk about. We're running down the clan here very quickly. We've got Lance Henriksen as Jesse, who's the patriarch, and we find out later that he fought in the Civil War for the South, which I love as a little detail. Yeah. His name's Jesse. Jeanette Goldstein is his sort of companion. She's Diamondback.
She looks like
Paxton
hypodermic Sally from American Horror Story Hotel.
Oh yeah, totally. Jeanette Goldstein is also in it. So Paxton, Henriksen, and Goldstein are all in Aliens, which Cameron directed.
The second one?
Yes, the sequel.
Oh, I didn't know James Cameron directed that.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite absurd Hollywood stories. Allegedly, the pitch for Alien 2 goes like this. The executives are in the room. There's a big chalkboard. Alien is written on the chalkboard. Cameron walks in. He picks up a piece of chalk. He puts an S on the end, and he walks out of the room. And they're like, yep, go make the movie.
If that's true, I fucking hate Hollywood, man.
I mean, I don't.
That white
I think
man
Alien
thought
is one
to
of
put
the
an S on the end. Give him a check.
Okay, to be fair, it wasn't just a white man. It's James Cameron. The dude is like easily one of the best directors of that type of movie ever.
What year was Aliens?
86.
So he hadn't done that stuff by then.
He had already made Terminator.
Yeah, but he hadn't done Terminator 2, which is the better Terminator.
I don't know that that's true, but also Terminator, the first one is like crazy groundbreaking effects for the time.
Yeah, because he probably locked his editors in a room.
Look, I think James Cameron, the person, is probably not a dude I'd like to spend time with. I think he probably is just a nightmare to be around. I know all the stories of his sets, he's probably a nightmare to be around. However, the dude makes great movies. Like, he is easily one of the movies that come out of his psychosis are almost all wonderfully impressive.
That's true. And he is still.
And given that he's not committing crimes, I'm not a separate the art from the artist person in general. Like, if you're a child molester, cough cough Woody Allen, I have no interest in watching your movies.
Principal, Dad and Beetlejuice, Principal and Ferris Bueller.
Oh yeah,
Howard
but he's not a director.
Oh no.
Yeah. Or like Roman Polanski. Never seen a Roman Polanski movie. Have no interest.
The only one I will
movie.
watch at some point is Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah, I just don't want to. No penny of
I
my
won't pay for it.
Cash.
I did this. That's my thing. I'm like, I will 100% illegally pirate a movie if it's a director or someone a piece of shit somebody.
But anyway, James Cameron mostly is just a tyrant who makes his actors be cold and stuff, which is not great, but he's not committing crimes. So I don't have as big of a problem with it. Is a jerk is a real thing, and I believe that he's a jerk. I totally do. But anyway, Jeanette Goldstein, also the mother in Terminator 2, is
Wait,
Diamondback.
seriously? She's the one
that gets killed by the T-1000.
She stabs her husband with the finger.
Yes. The T-1000 takes her over. And then the other person that I think is really interesting, Joshua John Miller, is Homer, who is a very old child. And I wish they got into more of Homer and how old Homer actually is.
Well, isn't that also a thing in Interview with a Vampire, which has been on my list forever, and this has been not a great season for me for watching new things.
I've not seen it, but what's her face? Kirsten Dunst. Yeah, plays a child vampire in that. But the actor who plays Homer is Joshua John Miller, and he and his partner wrote The Final Girls.
Oh, really?
Which is a really fun horror movie. Yeah, and Joshua John Miller, is the son of Jason Miller, who played Father Karras in Exorcist.
Oh, wow.
And also wrote that championship season, which he won a Tony for.
Oh, I didn't know that existed.
So I thought that was pretty cool. Pretty cool thing.
Yeah, and I will again. I know I have a track record of shitting on children on this podcast. I feel like normally when you cast like child who's going to play a centuries old person or whatever have you, you cast a child who seems wise beyond their years and has a gravitas to them. Yeah, this kid's got a lisp. Like he sounds like a little kid. Yeah, like he sounds like.
Yeah, but you don't grow like you can grow out of a lisp, but you don't like his mouth never changes shape. He's the same age.
He sounds like Beans from Even Stevens.
I don't know.
It's hard for me to take like Beans from Even Stevens is not gonna play. Like if he was like, "I'm your vampire master," I'd be like, "Okay, Beans, get out. There's the door. Get out."
This character's lisp is nowhere near as intense as the one you are doing in your impression, for one.
Oh, I'm not saying it is. And again, I don't have any. If you have a lisp, I don't think I don't think you should be held back or anything. But I think for this role, I don't think it was the strongest casting choice.
He's also in Halloween 3: Season of the Witch, which is a movie we've been talking about doing on this podcast for 6 years.
The little boy who gets got? It's him and his parents in the room?
I believe so, but I don't remember specifically.
Yeah.
So anyway, they're in this Winnebago, and they gotta get rid of it because it's been seen. And Paxton steals like a station wagon, and they set the Winnebago on fire. And while they do that, they intimate that they started the Chicago Fire, the Great Chicago Fire, which I like a lot.
Well, I like this idea that they keep burning vehicles and stealing new ones. Like that could have been explored more.
Yeah, and there's little glimpses of stuff that's great. Like when they have a new car, they all have their little like black it out jobs. Like Homer has a spray paint can that he's frantically spray painting the windows. Somebody has a roll of aluminum foil that they're covering windows with. They all have little jobs to do.
Yeah, and actually that would have been a great way to tell the passage of time.
Yes.
Like you just keep seeing them with a new car, and that way you have an idea that like time keeps moving forward quickly.
Yeah, if this became a movie where the Vampire Clan added a new member and that's what the movie is about, then it would very easily happen that way. That would be the easy way to tell that story.
Agreed.
So Caleb tries to leave. He stumbles his way through town. Aliens is on the marquee of this theater in town, by the way. Wink, wink. He goes to this bus station, tries to buy a bus ticket. He's a few dollars short, so they won't let him. So he eats a candy bar and then immediately vomits, which I like this little vampire thing.
Yeah. Well, so the other thing that like, they're like, hey, you weren't supposed to turn anyone, May. And I was like, why? Can we like that? That is very interesting. Why do you not want that? Explain, please. And they don't.
Yeah, I think it's a real, we got mouths to feed now. You know what I mean?
But yeah, totally. But she's like, but Daddy, I love him. And like they're like, we're going to kill him because he's a vampire. In which like, why not just let him burn in the sun? Why did you pick him up in the van at all?
Right. It would have been easy. I think she told them she let a guy get away so that they would save him is my read of it.
Oh, like tricked, like said, like didn't. Okay, that's yeah.
Because that's the only logical explanation.
She was so in love with him. Like their date wasn't that long or charming or like indicative
Right.
to us, the audience, like why.
It does seem as the movie goes along that what the real motivation is, and maybe this is some stuff that was cut or what have you, but Lance Henriksen and Diamondback are a sort of a couple, and then May gets a partner, and then Homer is like, well, I need one now too.
Well, yeah, but I didn't. Yeah.
So I think maybe the motivation is like May is just lonely, like it's a couple. And then her, and then Homer, and it's like sort of a weird
Well, and Bill
family where it's like
Paxton.
the mom and the dad and the two kids. But she wants, yeah. But Bill Paxton's a wild card lunatic. Like I don't think you're having companionship with Bill Paxton
No.
in this character, Bill Paxton.
It would have been cool if if this movie had been just about them bringing Caleb into their circle. It would have been interesting to see Bill Paxton with like a different person every other scene. Like he just keeps.
Yeah.
Like, I'll make him a vampire for a few weeks and I kill him. I get over it. I'm bored with him.
Right. That would absolutely be his energy. Meanwhile, at the bus station, so Caleb gets sick. Character actor extraordinaire Troy Evans shows up. He's Roger Podacter in the Ace Ventura movie. He gets killed. This guy's entire filmography which is extensive, is about 80% or about 45% cops, 40% football coaches, and 5% miscellaneous.
Huh. Yeah, I haven't seen that in a while.
You don't need to revisit it. The ending is extremely transphobic.
Yeah, no, I know.
He's been in this guy, Troy Evans, has been in like 200
I'm
movies.
sure. I believe it.
So Caleb
It's
gets,
also
he gives Caleb a couple of
$14
bucks.
for a bus ticket in 1987. That seems like a lot.
They're several states away at that point.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, I feel like it would be about $14 now for a bus ticket.
They're I believe already into Oklahoma from wherever they were in Texas, because later the dad gets a phone call and he's like, we spotted them here. This cop gave him money to get a bus ticket home, and he's like, oh my god, they must have been going the other direction. I gotta go north.
But yeah, the cop tries to arrest him, and I'm like, what crime did he commit? He's just a dirty kid in a bus station throwing up a candy bar.
I think this is more, I'm going to put you in the drunk tank until the morning, then arrest you.
Got it. Okay.
Because he asks him a bunch of times what drugs he's on, and Caleb looks like he's detoxing in some capacity.
He does. Also, when the cop grabs him, it looks like he has a bite on his hand.
Yes,
And I was
it
like,
does.
is there a network of vampires?
Yeah.
No.
It just comes to nothing. But it does look like that. So he gives him money from the bus to get on the bus. Caleb gets on the bus and then very shortly is dying of illness. So he asks the bus to stop and he gets off. And May has been following him and lets him feed off of her.
Yeah, so you had texted me that the first half hour of this movie is one paragraph on Wikipedia.
No, the first hour of this movie is a single paragraph on Wikipedia.
Okay. That's why I was confused, because I thought you said half hour. Never
No.
mind.
This Wikipedia summary is 4 paragraphs. The first hour is one paragraph and maybe a sentence, and then the last half hour is 3 paragraphs.
Okay, never mind. I rescind my comment. And then all of a sudden we're following Caleb's family searching for him because they think he got kidnapped, and I was like, why is this the movie?
Yeah, so there's really A plot, B plot, C plot here. Is A plot is Caleb and May and their relationship. B plot is the family trying to find Caleb and rescue him, and C plot is the vampire clan. And I really think that should be flipped.
I was
C
like,
should
this
become
feels
A.
like what
Yeah.
Wes Anderson would do if he was making a vampire movie. That it would be about Angelica Houston looking for her son who got kidnapped by vampires, played by Ben Schwartzman.
Yes, it's something along those lines.
How do you feel about Wes Anderson movies? Because I don't care for them.
Cannot stand them.
Okay, I thought it was just
Not
me.
my cup of tea. Nope.
People
Everyone can enjoy what they like.
Wes Anderson, and I'm like, nope.
No thanks.
That symmetry is not my jam.
Yeah, I don't care for it at all.
I like making fun of it.
And people are always like, "Oh, you should try this one." And I'm like, I tried several of them. I did no more. I did Life Aquatic. I did the early one, Bottle Rocket. It's not for me. It's fine that you like it, but I don't want to watch it. But I do there are, even among the parts I don't care for, which the Caleb's family stuff is high among that. There's so many cool shots. They go to see the sheriff and he's backlit and it's dusty and smoky in this police station. It's just very cool looking set, I feel.
And then we go back to the vampire clan, and they're all down to kill people, but Caleb isn't. And I'm like, okay, but like, yeah, if you can't do that, you can't be you're not gonna be a vampire. They're gonna kill you.
Right. And it seems very easy to solve this problem. It's like, okay, well, you're a vampire now, so you need to drink blood. And if you're not going to do that, you might as well just kill yourself. Here's how to do it.
Like, we as humans, if our babies grew up and still didn't know how to do anything with themselves, we probably wouldn't keep having babies.
Right. Exactly. Well, that's why the clan doesn't want her to turn anyone, too. They're like, this is no good, May.
Yeah. And it's cool because we get this great moment where, as she's sort of like, look, you have to hunt to feed, we watch each little member of the clan hunt in their own way. And it's great. Bill Paxton hitchhikes and gets picked up by two girls that he promptly murders.
Looking like $10 million with a slide bolo tie, a Western shirt, a big old belt buckle, and boots. Like, everything about this outfit is amazing.
Especially in Texas? Wherever they are.
Yeah. Oklahoma, I think.
Texarkana.
At this point. But also, like, how's a vampire keeping a shirt white? You tell me. Scotchgard ain't doing nothing for that shirt.
Well, like, again, there's the glampires who only have fresh starched white shirts. And then there are the trash rats.
But the glampires have like a castle and, a servant. They have their Renwick and whatnot. Bill Paxton does not have access to a regular washing machine.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I will say the Lost Boys are kind of a middle ground. They're the only middle ground that I know of between trash rat and glampire. Yes.
They are glamorous trash rats.
Yeah, they're David Bowie.
If you want to hear our Lost Boys episode, by the way, patreon.com/dissecting the 80s.
Ding.
So Homer with the bicycle is my favorite of these, though, where because there's a bicycle in the back of the Winnebago, and then later it's on the roof of this car, and I'm like, what is with the bicycle? And it's like, oh, I guess Homer likes it, or maybe he's still a kid, and then you see him here where it looks like he's gotten hurt on his bicycle, and someone stops to help him, and then he eats them.
And then Lance Henriksen and Hypodermic Sally are driving and go to pick up a hitchhiker, and they try to be like, oh, we're going to rob you. And then they're like, haha, no, you're not.
Yeah, the guy gets in the back, and then another dude runs to the driver's side, pulls a gun, and the guy in the back pulls a gun on Diamondback. And Lance Henriksen and Diamondback are like, oh my God, it's going to be a challenge. This rules. They look so excited.
Yeah, they're stoked. And then it's...
I love there's a second where Lance Henriksen cranks the radio as high as it'll go with this just evil smile on his face. It's just such a good little bit of acting.
It's great. What song was the song playing? Like a "Don't Fear the Reaper" or?
It wasn't cute like that, I don't think.
And then and then they cut to Caleb again. The worst part of this movie. The romantic leads are rarely the best part in fun things like this. He and May are in a truck driver's cab, and it's him trying to kill the guy, and it's just like very uncomfortable to watch, and not in a storytelling kind of way.
Right.
Like he's like leaning in and then pulling away, and like looking at the guy's neck and then looking away, and it's like, bruh.
Shit or get off the pot, my dude. This truck driver is played by Roger A. Brown, who you may remember as John Henry in Disney's Tall Tale.
I thought he looked familiar.
Other things as well, but I loved that movie when I was a kid.
We had the little tin cup, the like campfire,
and the cowboy coffee mug that was actually made of tin that I'm sure we got in a Disney store or Disney World or something.
No, I think it was. I think it was a set. I think you got Babe, the movie, and.
Oh, that's a possibility. All I remember is I like to drink milk out of it. And then one time our grandmother was watching us, our parents went away, and she tried to make herself a cup of coffee in it. And it is a mug entirely made out of metal. So she poured very hot coffee into a metal mug, picked it up by the thing, burned her fingers, and dropped it and made a huge mess.
I don't remember that
story. I tell that story all the time. Caroline, my girlfriend,
have you ever told her that
sick
story?
of hearing it. frequently have told her that story. Every
I never
time.
told Nan that story.
Oh, it happened to her. Why would I tell her
I don't
the
know.
story?
Like, hey, Nan, do you remember this? I don't know.
I wasn't there for the. I don't think I was like in the room. I think I was told the story by our grandmother. Anyway, so May ends up killing this driver, and then she sort of baby birds Caleb to feed him.
Yeah. And again, like, I don't know why you're so into this dude, May. I don't know why he's so into you.
I think I think if we had one scene where she was talking about being lonely, especially if she was talking about being lonely to, say, Bill Paxton, who was calling her a psycho idiot, would be really enough to get this over the hump. This scene is really rad, though, of where he's like he's really aggressively drinking for May, and it's clearly making her woozy. They're underneath these oil derricks, and I just loved the sort of symmetry of the oil derricks pumping oil out of the ground as he is sucking all of the blood out of May. Like the juxtaposition there is like
severe under angle of these giant machines.
But that's such like a little film nerdy detail thing that I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, Kathryn Bigelow, this rules. Yeah, this is such a cool thing that you're doing this symmetry. Oh, by the way, Homer also was in Teen Witch. I had written that down here very late.
Who was he in Teen Witch?
The weirdo little brother.
Shut up. Top
Hat. Yeah. Remember she... Yeah, no, not Top Hat. That's the friend. The brother. Oh, okay.
So they're like, he gets one more chance, and I'm like, why? Just kill him. And at this point, kill May. Like, I don't get why everyone's like, what's the deal?
Yeah, there should be an explanation of how it'd be very easy for them to do a rundown scene of who brought whom to the party.
Well, like they say that Homer bit May, like sired May. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but I don't understand. What does that mean to us? Like, she's bound to you? Is that why she doesn't leave? Because she doesn't like any of you.
Right. I think it's just safety in numbers. You're a weird creature of the night. You got to be, it's probably helpful to not be a solo act.
Go be a night shift diner waitress. Yeah,
but you can't. So I feel that a modern vampire story, they have to be nomads.
Well, but she can be for me, if I were her, I would have left this group and like done my own thing.
But I think you're discounting the fact that it's really hard to be a vampire. Like you have to have a hovel to stay in or whatever it is, because you can't. It's not like you can go get a mortgage. And you can't set up stakes anywhere. You have to kind of be nomadic, and to be nomadic by yourself, it's a lonely life she's choosing then.
I think you can find a small town, be the night shift diner waitress, and live a comfortable life for a little while.
But you can't be in a small town and have someone go missing every 3 days. Like that doesn't, even with bad cops in the 80s,
so
like eventually someone's
going someone or a bus stop or something.
It just feels like a tough way to eke out a living as a vampire. Whereas if you're nomadic, you're hitting a town, and by the time they realize
is being stuck in a spray paint van with Bill Paxton.
I mean, again, like I don't think that's I think this decision is harder than you're making it out to be. I think that's sort of the theme of the movie is loneliness.
Yeah, but the movie doesn't say that.
I don't think the movie says it with its words, but I think that the imagery of the movie and the way that it's shot and the story that it's telling, I think this movie is like inherently about loneliness. Not to be like a fart sniffer who's reading between the lines on things, but I do think that the thesis of this movie is the loneliness of these outsiders.
See, I didn't get loneliness. I got addiction.
Yeah, you said that in your intro, and I don't read this as an addiction movie the way
it feels like she hooked Caleb. And now he's like in with the wrong crowd, and they're dragging him down the bad path. And then his father, spoiler alert, detoxes him. And then she shows up at his doorstep, and he's like, "Hey, don't you want to do one more? Don't you have one more hit?" And then they steal it.
No, I think it's a perfectly valid reading. Anyway, this is the best scene in the movie.
This is the scene. If you're gonna watch anything, I don't know if it's on YouTube. Watch this scene.
So they go to this really run-down dive bar, which is just perfect set.
There might be five
whoever
people
designed
in there.
This set. Yeah, there's a bartender and I think a waitress and then 3 patrons is about how it shakes out.
Yeah, something like that.
And Paxton immediately starts shit with this guy at the bar who's, sort of tough guy.
the bandana and the leather vest over the jean jacket.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. The patrons of this bar, there's another guy who's explicitly a biker who's got the bandana and glasses and stuff. And then the third guy looks like an accountant at Dunder Mifflin.
Yeah, I was like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, exactly. Like what a dweeb looking guy. But he starts a fight with this guy. He spills liquor on him. He spits on him. Paxton's really going after him. And then Paxton grabs Caleb and puts him in the way. And so the guy starts beating up Caleb. He catches a wicked beating and then throws one punch and the guy goes flying. And Bill Paxton's like, he doesn't say this exact line, but it's basically like, yeah, vampire strength.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like half of Paxton's lines could be boiled down to like, I love being a vampire. Woo! That is exactly the energy. Bill Paxton's character, and the way he plays it is, my character just loves being a vampire. Like, he's glad that it happened to him. He thinks it rules. He's never wanted anything more than this sort of power and craziness. He loves every second of it. Mm-hmm. And so they beat him up, and then is it the waitress next?
Yeah. And the crazy part with the waitress, you can take over, but everyone just stands around and watches this horrible thing happen to her.
Nobody reacts to anything in this bar. Like, Bill Paxton punches a guy across the room. Radio silence. This waitress gets accosted and groped and assaulted, and then her throat slit. Silence.
Lance Henriksen orders a beer and a glass, and then when she brings it, and Homer orders a shot of tequila, which she gives him, which is just beyond ludicrous. He looks like an actual child.
In this bar.
But Henriksen is like, oh, I don't need the beer, I just want the glass. And she's like, okay. And then they slit her throat and drain her into the glass. And then I thought there'd be a scene later where someone drank it, but it just gets left behind.
I think May drinks it. It's not like explicitly on screen, but I think May drinks it. And then the bartender's trying to get his shotgun ready as Bill Paxton kills the other guy.
And Lance Henriksen throws the latch across the door and is like, or is it Paxton or Lance who gets the awesome line that's, I just need a couple of minutes of your time, which is unfortunately
Lance
the rest of your life. Okay. He does the Goodfellas move where he bolts the door and is like, now you can't leave.
Yeah. And then, again, this is 100%, like, Bill Paxton's character is the one I would want to play in this movie. Or I probably would end up playing in this movie. He jumps in the bar and he's like kicking the glasses. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. When he kills the guy, the other bar patron, he like crushes and twists his head.
Yes.
And there's like a full 2 minutes to 3 minutes of dialogue prior to that with no underscoring. It's just the quiet diegetic sound of the jukebox playing in the background as he's like menacing and like terrorizing this man before he breaks his neck. And it's very effective and very unsettling. Again, kudos Kathryn Bigelow.
Yeah. And he steals his shades and he eats him and is like, I hate when they're all stubbly.
Mm-hmm. Stealing sunglasses, wearing a leather jacket, dancing on a bar.
Oh, yeah.
It's me.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I thought you were going to say Terminator.
Oh,
which
that
it also
too.
is.
So he's like on the bar, kicking the glasses, like taunting the bartender because he can't reload the shotgun.
The bartender has shot Caleb.
Oh, that's right. Caleb gets shot. And then...
And Caleb thinks he's dead and is like, I'm alive. And Bill Paxton's like, yeah, you are. And then he hops up and starts doing this. Yeah. I also, like, you don't really see it, which I'm kind of grateful for, but Bill Paxton has had spurs that sort of have been Chekhoved throughout this movie, and he kills this bartender with his spurs while standing on the bar.
I love that. Like, that is so unique
and
so clever. He's standing on the bar, like, real cool guy, like, standing on the bar with his hands kind of lazily on a rafter above him, so he looks real casual. And then as he kicks, you hear that, like, fing, and the whoosh of the spur, and he slits this dude's throat with like 3 or 4 spur kicks. And how do
Homer
they follow
kills
that up?
The first guy.
They shoot a guy in the back.
Yeah, it's really kind of lame. So Homer shoots the first guy in the back, and then May grabs the last one and she starts dancing with him, and then the accountant from Dunder Mifflin type dude, and then he jumps out the window. It's so cool.
he got jealous she danced with a guy, and that's why he's like, I'm gonna kill him. I'm like, this toxic masculinity dick measuring contest? Seriously, Caleb?
Yeah.
You've had all these opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, look, it sometimes takes people a long time to work their courage up to become actual murderers, okay?
just kill Caleb. That's what I'm like. Just kill Caleb, kill May. The three of you move on with your life. Find someone else. Find a new one.
I don't think you gotta kill May. I think May's an interesting character. I'd be fine if they just killed Caleb.
But May's gonna be like, meh. Like she's gonna be journaling sad poems about Caleb.
It's like the Emily Dickinson story secretly.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not really the kind of sadness she wrote about, but the point stands. So they tell Caleb to go run after him, and then there's a really fun bit where Homer is like really jamming out on the bar, but the song on the radio is like, all my exes live in Texas. It's totally out of sync. Like he clearly was dancing to yeah, he's dancing to like the Ferris Bueller soundtrack basically.
We also get that trope that like all liquor burns, because they're just like throwing bottles and like all the liquor's catching fire. And I'm like, that's not all liquor. Hashtag not all liquor.
Yeah.
Movie.
Yeah. Although I think if you threw it and it broke, you'd get a lot of alcohol vapors going, which is very flammable. So maybe that's what it is.
Oh, I didn't think about that. I'm not a scientist.
I only know it because I flambe on a somewhat regular basis, and I don't do it with. I mean, I put bourbon into a pan and or brandy into a pan. I turn it off.
Did you ever put that one video on? Did you put one of the videos on Patreon of you almost burning your girlfriend's face off?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Did we talk about this previously?
I thought we did.
Oh.
Maybe I'm misremembering.
I don't know. You may have just seen it. Anymore, I don't do it. Since COVID, I've stopped doing it with a lighter because anything that might send me to the hospital, it's off the list. So I just turn the pan off and let it boil quickly, which does the same thing. But I used to like doing it. It's like a fun little chefy thing. You pour the brandy in and then let it cook down, and then you got a good pan sauce going.
I need to try it.
Again, not during COVID is probably the answer.
Well, I work at a hospital network now, so I feel like it's...
Caleb catches up to him, but he lets him go. And then they get Caleb in the car, and it's almost daylight because of Caleb's like whole deal letting him go and everything. And so this scene's kind of rad where they're like frantically trying to cover the windows.
And trying to get to a motel.
Yes.
Which, like, again, if Caleb has caused all of this damage and like chaos for you people, rip his head off and toss it in a dumpster.
But he proves himself here shortly, because he does say, he's like, we're done with you. Like, we're going to figure out what to do with you, but you're done. Like, we gave you a lot of chances and you're out. They do say that they're going to do what you're saying.
There's also a weird moment. So the sun rises and the police start knocking on the door. And one second, because I have to point out something very odd. Oh,
so Lance Henriksen goes to rent the room, and he's like banging on the bell really aggressively. And this scene is almost shot for shot in From Dusk Till Dawn, which obviously is an homage to this. Yeah, there's a scene in From Dusk Till Dawn where they're trying to rent a room, and George Clooney is like smacking the hell out of the bell and like slamming it on the table and trying to get service. And it's just very odd that this little detail from Near Dark is put into that movie. And then there's also a nice bit with the hotel owner who's like, didn't I see you here like 50 years ago? And he's like, yeah, I get through here about once every 50 years.
Yeah. That joke would have worked with our vampire dad character.
Oh, for sure.
So
the police are at the door. The sun's rising.
Curtains are like cheap airport motel curtains that are made of tissue paper. Like, they're not blocking anything. And Bill Paxton still throws them open and like catches fire and is like, the sun. And I was like, yeah, we can see it.
I think it's direct sunlight is what catches them on fire.
But why would he, if you can see sunlight streaming through these tissue papers?
I thought he opens it to see where the cops are.
It's possible, but like either way, sunlight's there, bruh.
No, I know, but I think he was like, I have to take this calculated risk so I can see where the cops are so I can shoot at them.
Maybe.
So this is another really rad scene in this movie. Paxton shoots his shotgun through the front door and kills the cop, but the sunlight immediately sets him on fire, and then this leads to just like a crazy big shootout.
Yeah. I think this shootout could have had more interesting shots.
Yeah, it's a really small room, so there's not a lot of like fun camera movement to be had because they're in a motel room with 2 beds.
Yeah, and so Caleb is like, I'm going to save the day. And he spikes his way out the door with a blanket on and runs to the car and drives the van into the room.
Yes, directly into the room. Also, spikes it is referencing Buffy for anyone who doesn't know. Spike was always running around with a blanket. Spike always had a blanket over his head. But I love
that Buffy was just like, whatever, Spike's in the daytime, put a wool blanket on his head.
Yeah. It's always these like very bad, like they're like moving blankets that they use in Buffy.
Yes, they were quilted, shitty, uncomfortable blankets.
Yeah. But I love that he drives into it's a little bungalow motel. So like each room is its own little like building. So he drives into one side, everybody piles into there, and then he drives it through the other side to escape.
Bananas. They get to a new hotel. Paxton gives him a spur, and he's like, "You're one of us now."
This new motel is just shy of being a hotel room or motel room from the show Supernatural. Yep. Yeah, just shy. It doesn't have the fake wall, but it's very close.
It doesn't have the weird dividing wall that they all had. Also, at this point, Homer looks like 11 in Stranger Things when she found the other test subjects.
Yes.
And they're
because he meets the little girl.
The thing was, they're like, we wear eyeliner and black blazers.
You also, you can kind of see it in other scenes, but this scene in the motel room, Henriksen's nasty rat tail is in full display.
Yeah, it's like a braided rat tail.
Yes.
So they're like, yeah, Caleb, you're cool now. And then he and May go outside and we get 20 seconds of like romantic dialogue. And I was like, give me more to care about these people, please. Because we're an hour into this movie and I do not.
Yeah. I'm not quite as down on them as you are, but again, it's just less interesting than the vampire gang playing cards. Homer slips outside, says he's going to have a smoke, and then he sees Sarah, Caleb's sister, which he doesn't know, and she is getting a soda from the soda machine. And I was like, I thought it was like 11 p.m. when this was happening, which is like a wild time for an 8-year-old girl to be by herself getting a soda. But it turns out it's like 5:15 in the morning.
Yeah, it's late enough that the television is stopped. They played the American flag thing.
Yeah. Yeah, he invites her back to the room, and he opens the door, and Sarah walks in with Homer, and it's the 3 vampire psychos, and Sarah's like, hi, everybody! You all play cards real late!
And then Bill Paxton goes, we keep odd hours. And I was like, that's such a cute way for a vampire to talk to a kid.
It's also the best line delivery. It's so good. Seriously, he's the best part. There's a reason why Bill Paxton is on the poster of this movie, despite only being in it for like 28 minutes combined. And it's because he freaking rules.
Yeah. And so Homer is like instantly decided he's going to turn this girl. And I was like, but is she the first child you've ever met? Like, why her?
Yeah, it just seems like, oh, this was easy prey and we're going to be gone soon. So this is just simple. But it's very strange.
Because he's like instantly obsessed with her. Like, she's mine.
Yes.
I'm not going to let her go. I'm like, you just met her.
I also think it's really wild how she's just so chill about the 3 lunatics that she has entered this room with.
I mean, she's a dumb child in the 80s.
Still, I feel like she could be a little alarmed. So Caleb comes back and he sees his sister and they have their little like, oh my God, Sarah, I missed you. And she gives him a little bit of like finger wagging, which is fun. And then Caleb's dad shows up and he pulls a gun very quickly. And Caleb's like, no, Dad, that doesn't work here. And he's like, whatever, son, gun solves everything. This is Texas.
But then also, Homer grabs Sarah and like pulls her to a corner and he's like, don't do that, son. And then Homer, correct me if I'm wrong. Homer goes, I bit May bit you. Now I'm going to bite your sister. And that makes us even Stevens. And I was like, I do not follow.
He's implying that Caleb has stolen May away from him. Like May was supposed to be his.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah. So Caleb's dad shoots Lance Henriksen, and he does this awesome thing where he spits the bullet out.
That was pretty rad.
Yeah. So they end up fleeing. The whole Caleb and his family are like driving away in a truck, and Caleb's in the back, like hiding under the spike blankets. And that's when he does the thing you alluded to earlier, which is, oh my God, Dad, have you ever done a transfusion on a human?
Well, so what happens is he dives in the back of the pickup truck or whatever. And then we see all this science equipment in the back of the car, in the van. And I was like, what is that? Like, is his dad making meth? I don't know. And he goes, and he says, Dad,
you really didn't put the vet thing together, huh?
No, I didn't. Because I thought it was just like, and then because we see one scene for like 10 seconds, and I was like, oh, they're just being, cattle ranching or whatever, animal husbandry.
He gives a sheep a shot.
Oh, I guess I missed
That's
that.
like the intro. Yeah. So they do the blood transfusion, and the blood transfusion works, which is like, this one is fine with me because like we really don't get the rules of the vampire here. But in my brain, I was like, well, Caleb's never drank human blood, so maybe that's like the final thing. Is like, if once you've hunted and killed and drank from blood from human, then you've become the full vampire and it's reversible. I was like, okay, that makes some sense.
But that's not the case.
Right, it's not. They sit down to dinner,
Well, also,
and boy,
I'm sorry, human anatomy and cattle anatomy cannot be that similar.
no, but a transfusion is literally just like you find a vein, you put a needle in it, and you put blood in it.
Just any vein?
Yeah.
I imagine, because, well, when I go to get, like, blood drawn, they have to, like, find the right kind of vein. Or, like, when I get a shot, they have to find the right spot for it. You can't just, like, throw a dart and hope for the best.
I feel like if in a apocalyptic scenario, I could do a blood transfusion.
But also, okay, again,
I've had my blood drawn like 100 times. I feel like it's pretty simple to find the vein in an arm and put a needle
I get it
in
done
it.
every 3 months.
I know. I'm not saying I'm special. I'm just saying I think it's doable.
Also, with a transfusion, it's in the context of a vampire or a zombie thing, wouldn't the only way to make a transfusion effective for this to be that you drain all of the blood out and then put all new blood in?
That was my exact question, and they don't explain what they do here, but that I thought would be really interesting. And what they do, it seems, is the dad gives like 1 bottle's worth of blood, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, it looks like they're stuck together. They're like daisy chains together. And I was like, so
yes.
Dad's infected now? Because that would have been a great twist.
Yeah, no, that would have been that. They're each like half vampire somehow.
And he's cured. He's well enough instantly to give his sister a piggyback ride all the way across the field. And I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
And he's like, one day I'll tell you, but not today. And we go to sit down for dinner, and boy, what do we have for dinner? A nice pot roast, mashed potatoes, some roasted carrots, and to drink, a couple tall glasses of milk for the kids and a hot cup of coffee for Dad. Why does everyone in movies drink the craziest shit at dinner? Why is this a
They
thing?
live on a farm.
There's water there.
Milk
I
on
am
a
sure
farm
of it.
seems more logical.
The dad's drinking coffee at like 8 p.m.
Some people do that, especially for dessert.
They're eating the pot roast.
I know.
They're
but, like,
eating pot roast.
Dessert
Stop
comes after
defending
dinner,
this
and
with
people drink
Yes.
coffee then.
I think it's fine to have a cup of coffee with cake. I think it's a lunatic that has a cup of coffee with a pot roast and mashed potato dinner.
Maybe. So, but at this point, I'm like, if I'm this family, my new thing is that we don't have a home anymore. We just drive and follow the sun. We're never out of the
Right.
sun.
It's like Endless Summer, that old surf documentary.
Yeah. So you just drive, follow the sun, and when you get to the West Coast, you just actually no. Wouldn't you would go west to east, wouldn't you, to follow the sun trajectory?
Well, I mean, you couldn't do the thing you're describing.
You can keep driving and always be in sunlight. That's how.
Well, you run out of road to drive on.
Not. That's what I'm saying. Like, but it would travel west to east, right?
Yes. But you couldn't, like, even with a plane, I don't think you could do the thing that you're
You
describing.
when you get to the East Coast, you just fly to the West Coast and start over again.
I just don't think you can. I don't think you can do that. Like, I think the speed would be almost impossible to make this work. But anyway, that's fine. May is on the swing, and she gives him a hug, and she's like, "Oh my God, you're warm." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm not a vampire anymore. It's really rad. You should try it."
So
And
this is where I was like, I've never seen a movie do this kind of vampire story and then end with like, hey, I'm cured and we can never be together again.
I thought it was going to lead to like my vampire pal who lives in the basement and eats rats.
The Babadook. So
something.
she's just the Babadook.
Yeah, basically. In the sequel to Fright Night, there's a vegetarian vampire who doesn't drink human blood and only eats bugs, which I thought was interesting. I've never seen another thing, so like, oh, maybe she's a vegetarian vampire. She eats cow blood or whatever. But this is all a trap. Then May is the distraction
Was
while
May
they can go
actually
steal
a
the
distraction,
sister.
or did they happen to follow her? Because the movie doesn't tell you, so it's more. What do you think?
I guess it would be illogical for the rest of May's actions for her to be actually setting the trap, but boy, that's what this reads like.
Yeah, I think my brain just was like she wanted to go find him and they followed her, which the movie could have taken the 30 seconds to show us that.
No, I totally agree.
So at this point, his sister gets taken and his father takes an Uber out of the movie.
Yeah, he's just like, are you going to go save his sister? And he's like, yeah, well, I'm just going to be in here. I got you, buddy. Don't worry about it. We're going to go drive with the sun and don't worry about a thing.
So weird. So he, his car, all the car's tires have been popped. So he has to saddle up to save his sister.
Yeah, I mean, this shot looks rad as hell. The street is all wet down. The neon's glittering in the street, and he's like clip clopping. It's instead of high noon, it's high moon.
Okay, I like that. I like that a lot. And then there's a lot of horse hoof shots.
Yes,
one might say
because
there's
clearly
too many horse hoof shots.
Clearly, they only had the horse for a short time and were trying to get this done in a safe manner because the horse bucks Caleb and then literally runs out of the movie.
They might as well have just recycled shots but flip flopped, like horse trots left to right. Now horse trots right to left.
I totally agree. This leads to a cool bit of business where Caleb like runs past Bill Paxton. There's an 18-wheeler. He asks the guy for help. And then Paxton shoots him like dead in the forehead from, 100 yards, which is a fairly impressive shot.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing that Caleb had Chekhov's How to Drive an 18-Wheeler lesson from the guy who played John Henry, because he then drives this 18-wheeler, smashes into Paxton, and he pops up looking like just absolute roadkill, but not dead.
Is great in this
and just
movie.
starts... Oh, it's so good. And he just starts ripping pieces out of the truck as it's driving. And then Caleb like remembers the bit on how to make the truck jackknife, because the other truck driver was like, if you don't do this, the truck will jackknife. But what plays out in the movie is Caleb initiates the jackknife, jumps out of the cab, and then the truck explodes immediately before it hits anything. It's as if he put a bomb in it. Like, I wanted the thing to, like, crease, crash, boom, roll over, and then blow up. I just wanted it to, like, I wanted it to break and then explode, and instead it just blows up. But one of Paxton's spurs comes, like, clinkering and, tinkling on the street in front of him. It's like, well, I guess he's out of the movie. It's a rad explosion. It looks very cool.
The explosion is phenomenal. So now May and I almost said Laurie Metcalf. Who's the
Diamondback and Lance Henriksen?
Lance Henriksen. It's not Diamondback. It's Lance Henriksen and May at the car.
Yes, Diamondback's behind him. That's right. This is the big showdown.
Yeah, and May is like, just let him go, Jess. And I'm like, why do you care so much at this point?
Right.
Again, at this point, I'm killing May. I'm killing Caleb. Maybe turn the sister, whatever. We'll give her a minute.
Yeah. So Sarah, the little sister, breaks out and she yells like, Caleb, she's right behind you, which means like he ducks when Diamondback throws her knife, which ends up catching Lance Henriksen right in the mouth. It looks, which is kind of rad.
When he pulls it out and you get that sickening sound and he spits blood, it looks great.
So Sarah runs to Caleb and they start running and he's carrying her, which like, I know she's a kid and can't run that fast, but there's no way that you carrying her is faster than her. Like you're holding her hand and you're both running.
Well, also,
like it just doesn't make any sense.
Then she whispers under her breath, like, run, Caleb, get out of here. And I was like, what?
Oh, I completely missed that.
Yeah, I had closed captions on too. And she goes, run, Caleb, get out of here. And I was like, wait, hang on, what?
Are you sure that wasn't dialogue from May?
No, it was her. It was because her mouth moves.
Huh. That's so weird. Because she immediately, Diamondback is like, come on, let's get in the car and get him. And Lance Henriksen gets in the car, Diamondback gets in the car, and then they're like, come on, May. And I'm with you. At that point, I'm like, screw you, lady, we're leaving. And then just like, leave her there.
Yeah. Suck on that.
Right. So now we're like chasing and...
He trips for some reason.
Yes.
And he's like, run,
he falls
little sister.
down.
Keep running.
It's not for some reason. It's because he's carrying a 65-pound child like in his arms.
Yeah, but like he trips as though he steps in a bear trap or he got shot.
Yes.
Because he like stays on the ground. And so she runs.
Yeah, no, he seems hurt.
And we see the car, the vampire car pull up. She stands there and stares at it as it gets close to her and then screams. He watches and doesn't do anything and then screams. And I was like, you both deserve to die.
Yeah, especially because the sun is like actively rising at this point. It would be very easy to just run loops and try to stay away from them. That they can't get out of the car. Yeah, exactly. Like double back, do a lot of twisting and turning, whatever. May ends up, they're all in the car. May grabs Sarah and jumps out the back window and sort of protects her from the fall. And then they kind of roll and then they start running and she's obviously catching on fire
and
as they're
Homer
both
jumps
running
out.
toward Caleb.
Again, I don't know why Homer is so obsessed with this. He like jumps out and runs after her and is like, Sarah, come back, as he like burns.
Yeah, him catching on fire is really gnarly. But yeah, I wanted Lance Henriksen being like, kid, there's plenty of fish in the sea. Like, you're gonna be fine. You're 150. You don't need me to tell this.
Towns and find 17 people.
You're 150 years old. You don't need me to tell you this. Like, you're fine. You're gonna be fine. But Homer ends up exploding, which also looks really great.
I was not expecting an explosion.
And then Jesse is driving the car toward them, but he is also catching on fire. And Jesse's sort of covered with a blanket. So
Honeycomb.
Jesse ends up cooking.
Diamondback.
Yes, Diamondback. They sort of hold hands in Thelma and Louise at Honeycomb. It's not the children's cereal, you loon.
They explode, and I was like, "That's the ending? The vampires all explode?
Yeah,
It's hocus pocus."
Nope, it's not the ending because we have the dumbest part, which is the second faker dumber ending, which is May gets a transfusion, wakes up from it, and everything's fine.
I was so mad.
I would not want to be a human again after living as a vampire as long as May has.
She was only doing it for a
I would
couple
not
years.
want to live with it. She's killed a person a day for several years.
I don't think it's a person in a day, but she's killed more people than most people.
She's killing multiple people per week for years. You would never get over that. Your entire waking and sleeping life would be just remembering all of the people that you ate. But they freeze frame on a hug, and that's the end.
Why didn't she explode to begin with?
The blanket, I guess.
Maybe it's weak.
I'm not arguing that point. But I do. Final thoughts wise, I do like this movie. I do think there's a lot to like here. I think, as I said, it's really neat to see Kathryn Bigelow, who becomes a director who made a lot of really great stuff, sort of in the early days. In the same way, I like watching Evil Dead and watching the way that Sam Raimi and his friends cooked up a movie together. This obviously significantly higher budget, significantly higher effects budget, et cetera, et cetera. But it's cool. It's cool to see the talent just sort of bubbling out of a person before they've really honed it. I like watching that stuff. So I would recommend this, although like I said, it's impossible to find this. You're going to have to bootleg it if you want it or pay a lot of money for a Blu-ray. But I do like a lot of this. Bill Paxton is amazing.
At the very least, do yourself a favor and find the bar scene on like YouTube or Vimeo or something. Because that scene, again, it could be its own short film.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it rules. Would you recommend this overall, or are you sort of in the middle on it?
It's soft. It's hard to find, and it's on the sort of middling side. So it's a soft recommend, but again, that bar scene is worth the price of admission.
Yeah, if nothing else, Bill Paxton is just so good in it that it's one that you want to see for that reason. So give that a whirl if you've got the time and are still in a spooky mood here in November. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook, and you can tweet at us at Dissect the 80s. You can also find us at dissectingthe80s.com, which has all sorts of information about the show and back episodes and all that good stuff. Don't forget, if you haven't, rate the show, please. We got that mean one and it still left a bad taste in our mouth. So if you have something nice to say, we'd love to hear it. If you don't have something nice to say, I really would be fine if you kept it to yourself. I'll just be honest with you. But go ahead, leave whatever review you want to leave. And if you like the show, tell 2 friends. That's the best way to hear about new podcasts, and we don't plug that enough. So make sure you tell 2 friends if you like the show. We will be back in 2 weeks to close out NoVampire with a movie that has no vampire to celebrate T-Hanksgiving, our favorite holiday. And we are going to do Tom Hanks's one and only spooky role, The Burbs, which I cannot wait to talk about with you. It's got so much stuff we love. Oh man, I'm so excited for you then. This is cool. There's so much stuff that we love. You got Dick Miller, you got Corey Feldman, you got Tommy Hanks. Joe Dante directed this. There's a lot to like here. I'm excited to dig into it with you. Until then, though, go check out the old episodes and all that fun stuff, or visit the patreon.com/dissectingthe80s. You can hear our Lost Boys episode for that other vampire movie from 1987 and a whole bunch more. Check that out and see if there's something there for you. Thank you once again for listening. I have been Trip Lano.
I will always be Andrew Lano.
Until next time.
Don't you forget about me.
Dissecting the 80s is a Chum Some of This production.